All right, perfect. Bill, thank you so much for having a meeting with me today. For everyone that is watching, this is a good friend of mine. His name is Bill Guertin. And Bill, go ahead and open the floor and introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about how you broke into the industry and what you do.
Well, Allison, thank you for asking me to be aboard. And I want to address all those who are in that transition zone that really, I want to speak directly to you and to Allison at the same time and see if we can't help you along in that. I started out on radio. That was my big thing. I was going to be the next Larry Lujak, who was the big time top 40 DJ at WLS in Chicago at age 16. And so I got my third class radio operator's license at 16. I was the youngest licensed radio broadcaster in the state of Illinois.
Wow.
And then I figured out where the money was at 21, and it was not on the air.
No.
And so I started a 25-year sales career in broadcast media, starting as a sales rep for AdSpace at my hometown station in Kankakee, Illinois, and moving into other suburban stations. And then I saw in 2001, I saw this. And for those of you who don't know what one of these are, this is an iPod. Mm-hmm. You don't need one of these anymore because if you have one of these, it's essentially this with a lot more. But when I saw there were 1,000 songs in your pocket, I literally thought it would be the death of local radio. Mm-hmm. And so I began looking into ways in which I could be more relevant to those that I served. And there were a lot of things I wanted to do. I wanted to be a published author. I wanted to be in sports, maybe. I wanted to be a public speaker. There were so many things that I had done. And so I set out to perform many of those. And I was fortunate enough about that time to be in a limo for a 2-hour ride with Mark Victor Hansen. And for those of you who know who he is, Mark is one of the most prolific authors on the planet. He's the Chicken Soup for the Soul co-author. Yeah. For those of you who have multiple books, he's on track to be perhaps the most prolific author on the planet. He and Jack Canfield together. Mm-hmm. And so I was bringing him to my hometown from the Chicago airport, and we got stuck in this awful traffic jam, which was great for me because I got more time with him. Mm-hmm. And so we began talking about what was going to be next in my life and how I was going to do this. And, I was in the radio, I was not really having fun with it, but he began telling me several things. He said, speak for free until you no longer have to speak for free. And so I took that to heart, and I spoke in several different places. He also told me to write down my goals. He said, do you have any goals written down? I said, well, no, I don't really have any goals. And, I said, yes, I do. I want to do this and this and this. And he said, well, do you have them written down? I said, no, they're all right here. He said, no, you have to write them down. He says, when you get home tonight, you have to write down 101 of your goals, 101 written goals. Yeah. In Mark's world, that is the spiritual number of completion. All of his Chicken Soup books have 101 stories. I'm a Bible guy. I've never seen the number 101 biblically ever anywhere, but that's what he says. And so I went and I did that 101 goals booklet. And I can tell you that it has made all the difference. I have since achieved 84 of those.
Wow. Good for you.
And, awesome. But it's something, and it's when the very first one I got from Mark was this. I still have it. And so it has all of those things that I have done throughout this. And so this is a sort of thing that I actually incorporated when I went out to do my live trainings in sports. My first opportunity to train in sports was with the Chicago Bulls. And that was in 2004. And I was scared to death.
Yeah, that's intimidating.
But as I went out to do my work, and I decided at the beginning, I was going to be just I was going to be very broad. I could speak on anything. I just wanted to get out and speak. People said, hey, do you speak on team building? I said, sure. Do you speak on customer service? Sure. I can speak on anything. And what I learned over time is that if you're a generalist, you can't afford a very high fee. And when you become very, very specific, however, you become more valuable and thus can charge more. So that for me was this enlightened moment.
Something that people can do with their jobs too, though, Bill. Like,
that's right.
It's something that I know we hear some of our buddies over at a couple of the different podcasts that are out there. It's funny. They always say, you never use the phrase foot in the door. You always say, this is what my goal is. This is what my thought is. So I think you're absolutely right. I love the concept. I love your concept of the passport for success. I'm going to actually steal that for myself too.
Well, I did, and I made a new one.
Yeah, I
This
love
is the
that.
personal goal planner, which I passed out when I became a sales trainer to people in my classes. So there we go. This is
I
what
love
I
it.
created from Mark's original idea. And so these are the kinds of things that seem maybe trite to some who've never done them before, but it's incredibly powerful. Mark told me in that limo, he said, once you write something down, there is something chemically in the brain that helps solidify that and helps you visualize the opportunities that become available to you as a result of writing that down that you would not have recognized if you hadn't written it down. So it's a subconscious exercise that actually helps things to be manifested. And so it's, I can't explain it. I'm not necessarily a some sort of a soothsayer or fortune teller or anything like that, but I can tell you that, mid 80s of those 101 goals being completed says something about where I'm at and how it's helped me. And so
Yeah.
it's what I wanted to do. And I was good at, I was speaking everywhere, customer service, sales, all these other places. And I was at the Chamber of Commerce in a small South suburban area when a guy came up, he had a White Sox jacket on. And he said, hey, he says, you're pretty good. You got some good energy. And he hands me his card. It was Tom Sheridan. It was the director of ticket sales for the White Sox. Mm-hmm. And he says, there are guys that travel around the country and do sales training for teams. You ought to look into that. And it was, I had no idea. And so that became my goal and eventually ended up talking to not Tom, but actually the director of ticket sales for the Bulls. For those who don't know this, the Bulls and the Sox have the same owner, and so they trade a lot of their information back and forth. And so I got my first opportunity to work with the Bulls, and I was called. There were 6 other people that had put in proposals, and the gentleman called. And he said, "Hey, we've tried half a dozen people in 6 years. We don't like any of them. Or would you be interested in putting a bid in?" And this is one of the smartest things I ever said, Allison, and this is for everyone in the room. I didn't necessarily care how much I would get at the beginning, but I wanted to be involved.
Yeah.
And so I said, well, and the smartest question I asked, so what is your budget for this? And he gave me a number, and it was really low for 3 days worth of work, which is a 3-day sales training we wanted, but it was a start, right? So I said, yeah, I could do it for that. And he said, you could? I said, yeah. He said, okay, you're hired. And so I had 3 months to prepare, which was really good. But I put a lot of what I had done in sales training within my radio stations. And so it was, I was nervous as all get out, but that was the first of now over 100 different teams in the US, Canada, and Mexico that my sales methods are now being used in. And it all started with just being bold enough to say, yeah, I can do it for that. And so don't be afraid to take on something that you think might be leading you to something that you'll really enjoy.
No, I think that's, I think that's huge because fear is the biggest factor that holds any of us back. And, something that we're doing on a day-to-day basis by just having a conversation, like you and I were talking earlier today, sometimes can make a huge difference by sharing that experience with somebody else. And, sorry, my cat's being annoying. For one of the few times that, for the chance that we make, and maybe somebody has never even thought about writing it down. And it's something that I know I've gotten away from, and it's something I need to personally get back to doing, because there's something really awesome about making that check and knowing that you've accomplished something, even if it's something small, like I got up and brushed my teeth today. Sometimes that can make your whole world a whole difference. So,
yes, you did something, right? Right.
Exactly. So and with COVID and everything that's been going on, hold on, I'm going to pause this real quick.
Sure.
Anyway, like I was saying, since all of this has been going on with COVID, what has been your experience in initially, I'm sure, reaching out to your clients, people that you've worked with, people that you've created a relationship? What has been your experience? What have you seen? What have you heard? And then what are some of the things that you're doing with your business to try to help empower those that are really feeling like they're in the deep end of the pool without floaties?
That's a great question. Prior to COVID, I really had three separate career tracks that were going on simultaneously. One was an outfit that you're intimately familiar with, ISBI 360, which is a video training modular program, which is essentially my live sales training programs, along with many others that we've enlisted to be able to be done virtually rather than being in person. It's far more involved than simply a video series, but it's been involved in several hundred people now throughout the country, and that was going well. I also had some clients who preferred the live in-person training work, and so I was continuing to do that. Then I also have a speaking career doing keynote speeches and those sorts of things, and I had just prepared a brand new program called the 7 Voices in Your Head, which has to do with peak performance and mental health, which, boy, it's becoming a little bit more popular now. But it was an in-person program that was very highly choreographed to music and sound effects and was really supposed to be done in person. And so I did the very first presentation of it, taped it, got it ready for speakers bureaus, and then COVID hit. So not only are we not selling any tickets, we're not doing any conferences, and we're not doing any live performances. So my life really came almost to a screeching halt around the first part of April. Now, we're fortunate that we've been working with a few clients who had signed up with us with the ISBI program. So that has maintained my livelihood as we've gone, but I've really had to fairly reinvent myself in doing things virtually like this versus doing things in person.
No, absolutely. I think that's the whole point of why I'm doing all of these interviews and why I'm creating this blog, is because we have to be creative. We have to find different ways to be the positive influence, because, whether we've been in the industry a year or 20 or 30 years, I mean, there's so much that we do in the sports world that's more than just strikes and balls. It's the experience, it's the memories, it's the community outreach, and all of us have experienced that. And those of us that believe in it and truly eat, sleep, and breathe it are the ones that are, I think, like yourself, just trying to figure out what's the next step. What do we do? How do we rebrand? How do we rebuild? And that being said, you were really one of the first people that I met as I began my career in sports. You had tons of unbelievable insight. And like you said, I did go through the ISBI training. And for everything that you've offered, I have been beyond grateful. You've been an incredible resource. So for that, I beyond appreciate it. Now, and that being said, what kind of insights would you offer to someone like myself and so many others that find themselves in a spot where we were set, we were ready to go, we were all excited to move to the next journey, and then the rug's pulled out? Yeah. So what are some ideas or insights of mindsets that you have?
Well, there's been a very well-documented syndrome right now called imposter syndrome within any community that has anyone in the workforce, where you think that you're supposed to know it all, but maybe you don't know anything. And it's the fake it till you make it magnified, right? Where people are in jobs, well, like my own, that is really not necessary right now. No one needs to know how to sell tickets when you can't fill a stadium. And so you become a little bit like the typewriter repairman. You have this wonderful skill that you have that no one wants. And so you are attempting to do what you think you need to do to either retool, reconfigure, maybe reposition yourself in the marketplace. And it just feels very imposter-like. And it is being magnified thousands and perhaps even hundreds of thousands of times now in the marketplace. And what I would say, there are 2 or 3 different things that I would suggest for folks that you might want to be able to do. First and foremost is to reach out to those that you have on your LinkedIn network or anywhere else, just letting them know that you're here and that you'd love to have a conversation with them to see if you can help them in any way. Not for an interview, not